Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our Q&A with our recruiters. My name is Sisha Maharaj. I'm a senior consultant with Devant. Before we start our webinar this evening, just wanted to let you know a little bit about logistics. If you are interested in asking questions, I do welcome questions. You can use the Q&A. I will go through the Q&A and sort of sort through the questions and ask the panelists throughout the event. So please use this time to ask the questions that interest you as much as you can. Feel free to use the chat as well, but I will be using the Q&A feature. Also, if you have any specific requests or if you can't hear us, please let me know in the chat and I can help with any technical support that you may need. So again, thank you so much for joining. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the land on which I am residing today for this webinar. The region of Durham exists on lands that the Mississauga and Anishinaabe inhabited for thousands of years prior to European colonization. These lands are the traditional and territory treaties under the nations covered under the Williams Treaties, including the Mississauga of Scugog Island, First Nation, Alderville First Nation, Hiawatha First Nation, Curve Lake First Nation, and the Chippewa Nations of Georgina Island, Beausoleil, and Rama. I honor, recognize, and respect Indigenous peoples as right holders and the stewards of the lands and waters on which we have the privilege to live. In our efforts, reconciliation, we continue to build and strengthen relationships with First Nations, as well as the large Métis communities and growing Inuit communities here in Durham. I commit to learning from Indigenous values and knowledge, building opportunities for collaboration, and recognizing that we are all connected. For our international students joining us today, I want to encourage you to learn about the lands that we are on, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about the Truth and Reconciliation commitments in Canada. So joining us this evening, we have a wonderful panel for you, and I would like to pass it over to our panelists to introduce themselves, as well as the roles that they're in and their companies. So Alex, I'd like to start with you. Please take the floor.
Muted.
Oh, Alex, you just need to unmute.
So excited
Sorry about that. Let's try that again. Hi, my name is Alex Chong. I work for a professional recruitment and staffing agency called Telensity. We focus on professional roles to a broad variety of clients that can range from enterprise-sized organizations to even small firms as big as 20, employees. And the type of roles that we fill are typically in the IT world and also professional engineering, marketing, and sales, and typically corporate kind of staff functions. And a bit about myself: graduated from Wilfrid Laurier University. Any Laurier grads out there, I hope? I lived in Japan for 2 years, taught English there. Came back to Canada, worked for Nestle as an assistant brand manager. From there, I moved over to the technology world, where I worked as a salesperson for Oracle, IBM, and small, medium-sized software vendors.
Thank you. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you.
Great. My name's Helen Chrysalis, and I also I own a recruiting firm called the Chrysalis Group. I've been in recruitment for 28 plus years, and we specialize in information technology, IT roles, cybersecurity roles, and also work in the mining industry as well. I do specialize in as well promoting women in STEM jobs, and have been doing that for quite some time, and have developed a few programs for that. And just last month, we ended up placing 4 engineers that came from Chile with Canadian mining firms. And I've been doing recruitment for a very long time, but so about 30 plus years. And I'm really happy to be here.
It's great to have you here, Helen. Thank you so much for your introduction and bringing your experience to this discussion.
Hi, I'm John Kitchen, and I've been providing leadership to technology-based companies for over 35 years. And so for the past 26 years, I've been with Esri Canada. I was general manager for the 24 years in the Past 2 years, I have been a strategic advisor to them. So Esri specializes in geographic information systems, or GIS, and we empower organizations with location intelligence by using a geographic approach for problem solving, planning, and prediction. So just a quick aside, location intelligence is the insight gained from visualization, analyzing geospatial data. So you layer on specific data, be it demographic, traffic, environmental, could be weather or economic, and we create these smart maps or unique dashboards. So leaders use those to better understand where and why things are happening and plan what to do next. So an example would be of locational intelligence. Where do I put that next retail site selection? Or where do I put that water pipeline? Or how do I manage assets in real time, say in electrical utilities? Or how do I make supply chains optimize and work better? Or optimizing areas such as forestry stands or agriculture. So we're in a plethora of different industries and also within governments and private sectors.
Welcome, John. Thank you so much for being here. I was really impressed in learning a lot about the collaboration and open access to data that Esri offers to Canada for the betterment of society. So really, really pleasure to have you here and represent Esri Canada on the panel.
Great
Thank
to be
you.
here. Thank you for having us.
Hello, my name is Rakesh Tikku. I'm the president and CEO of Infield Solutions. I'll start with my background first, and then we'll get into what Infield Solutions does today. So I've actually been a serial entrepreneur since the early 90s, so well over 30 years. I was 2 when I started, anyways. So honestly, I'm one of those individuals. I look for opportunity and try to seize the moment. I've been in technology mostly, but also in procurement, business development, finance, supply chain. So it's I'm hoping that I can provide some insight to the attendees today, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And if I could continue to help you in your journey, career-wise, I'm happy to do so. Infield Solutions is where I currently reside. Well, I love what we do. We are building our next generation of platform, which empowers our clients to focus on what matters. Really, by automating their mundane workflows and incorporating IoT devices, we enable our clients to achieve their growth objectives. We primarily focus on trades, industries, construction, and manufacturing.
Rakesh, thank you so much for being here as well. I love learning about your company and all the innovative solutions that you're offering to our multiple diversified companies across Canada. So much to learn about, software as well as hardware interactions to add value to companies. So thanks again for being here. I do have to say a number of our students are interested in starting their own businesses or working in startups. So I'm sure you're going to get some good questions later on. So thanks again, Rakesh. And Ryan.
Don't do it.
Oh.
I'm just joking.
Hey, give them a chance. Hey, Ryan, you're next.
Hi, so yeah, my name is Ryan Gore. Thanks so much for having me. I'm the co-founder and managing director of Alora Labs. We're a product consultancy, so we help primarily startups with product strategy, UX design, and development. So the industries we work in are primarily IoT and SaaS for the most part. A little background on myself. I come from a computer engineering background, so I went to Ryerson for computer engineering, moved into project management, but then realized it was actually more product management, and then pretty much stayed in product for my entire career. Before this, I was working at a prop tech startup called House Sigma. I helped it grow to 1.8 million users. Before that, I was working at a student loyalty program called SPC, which I'm sure maybe a lot of students use the program. I helped it grow to about 700,000 users there. So excited to be here, and hopefully I can help out in some way. Yeah, feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Ryan. It's great to see that you're encouraging students to connect and network with you. And in terms of product management roles or careers in this area, I know that it's also an opportunity that students have raised as an area of interest. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise on the panel. So I want to start off with our first question. I see that we're still getting a lot of people starting to chime in and attending this webinar, which is great to see. And also before we start the questions, I would actually like to thank and acknowledge our sponsor and partner, TechConnex. TechConnex is a dynamic member-driven community offering opportunities for peer education, networking, and knowledge sharing to develop technology businesses and their teams. So a big shout out to TechConnex, and thank you so much for sponsoring and partnering with us to support international students and new immigrant employment in Canada. Really appreciate your partnership. So the first question I have for our panel, maybe you could share with us a little bit more about the skills that your employer is looking for the types of roles that you feel are in demand for early talent or newcomers to Canada. And we can maybe start in the same order. So maybe Alex, I can ask you to go first from the roles maybe that you recruit for or what you're seeing in the industry. Please feel free to share what you think are some of those skills that employers are looking for.
Well, I only could speak on behalf of, our firm. Last year, the tech sector was blazing hot, developer roles, cybersecurity, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm seeing a shift to engineering construction, right? And when I say engineering construction, project management roles, design engineers, estimators. So that's where I'm seeing at least more pickup in terms of sector right now.
Thank you, Alex.
For me, I would say mostly because the clients I deal with, a lot of it is cybersecurity. So with cybersecurity having a 0% unemployment rate and it's growing rapidly, the demand definitely is there, and it's definitely there for new graduates for sure. And so that would be the sector that I would say, as well. Another, I would say engineering as well, like Alex did say. I do see an increase in the engineering positions. And even though I don't specialize in it, I will mention it here, is anything for trades as well is very, there's definitely not enough workers in trades. And we have aging population that's getting ready to retire. And that's the same thing in engineering as well. And so there's this very large gap that they're looking to fill.
I forgot to add and mention that don't ignore the contract type roles. In the last month, I'm seeing quite a bit of activity for like in the IT world, the project management roles, business analyst roles. Mm-hmm. Some of these contracts could last for 12 months and could be extended. So something else to consider other than permanent roles.
Thank you, Alex and Helen as well. Wow, 0% employment rate for cybersecurity. Did I hear you right?
Yeah, unemployment rate. So
okay.
It's
wow.
in definitely high demand, and you have a lot of clients that will look at intern students, bring them in, and eventually even keep them on, right? So that's definitely one way that they're trying to address the problem, right, of not having enough people in this industry.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for sharing that. I think that's really important to know where the reality is of where you're seeing the demand. And Alice, you raise a really good point around contract work. I see that Kaylin has a question here, which I will get to on looking for contract opportunities in between study breaks or where they are able to work, because international students are eligible to work part-time and also during scheduled breaks full-time. So thank you for bringing that up, Alex.
Certainly, for us, we see a real demand for GIS skills. We actually offer training with our technology in 60 colleges and universities across Canada. And we have that available in the classrooms, in the lab settings. We also have lots of blogs and free online training courses. So certainly that's core to our company. But I'd like to just pick up what Alex and Helen were saying. We're seeing programming skills, particularly Python, that seems to be in demand. Project management that was previously mentioned, business analysis is important. On the AEC, we call it AEC, which is architecture, engineering, and construction. It's going through a dramatic change. It's going from paper to digital. And so there's a big transformation also happening there. So certainly we're going to see transformations in that particular area. And technology is really going to get involved in how we do things. We're going to do digital twins of buildings. We're going to really have digital transformations coming. So AEC, that whole area for it, demand for the trades, but also on the how we do things within that arena is certainly going to need a lot of these recent graduates.
Thank you so much, John. And for those who are not familiar with your industry, what does GIS stand for?
Geographic Information Systems.
Wonderful. Thank you. And it's very impressive to hear that you're partnering with 60 universities and colleges. That's incredible. So that means for those students who are here, you can always ask about some of these courses and the integration of this content in your technology platforms, particularly, potentially, I believe, in the geography courses or potentially other courses, John?
Yeah, environmental courses as well. Would all have that available, and those 60 also have scholarships. There's $3 million worth of scholarships that are offered, but they all have formal programs.
Okay, very good to know. Thank you so much, John.
Okay, so I'm going to attempt to further enhance what my brilliant colleagues have already and peers have already said, rather than repeat. So I think the number one thing you could do for yourself is to understand what skills you have, what experiences you bring to the table. And as you study your target employer, try to see where the fit is. So one thing my sales team are doing actively is try to understand, for example, what are the growth objectives of our prospects and targets. So if you understand the growth objectives of what a company is looking to do, how can you enable that growth? What do you bring to the table? Are you from Chile? Are you from India? Are you from China? Are you from the Middle East? And the target client's saying, hey, I want to grow, maybe not Middle East right now, I want to grow into Asia or Europe or South America. Well, now you could say, hey, I'm from that region, and these are the experiences and contexts I bring to the table. Many international students that I have worked with historically have many years of experience. They're not necessarily just out of school. So think about how to leverage the experience and your know-how and your contacts. On that note as well, I mean, we have two recruiters here. Peruse their websites. Take a look at their websites. What are they really, where are the jobs? What are they hiring for? What skills do you have that fit the current trends? So Helen mentioned trades. I think trades is a great example. People overlook trades, and there's a huge demand in trades for plumbers, electricians, HVAC, roofers, whatever it may be. Project management and product management, which Ryan is a product manager, those two fields are universal. Every company, every type of business need those skills. I'm not going to just harp on technology. Obviously, technology, anything to do with AI and cybersecurity, those are always in demand in current world. Beautiful. GIS, you know, Google's done a beautiful job in the mapping world, and so is Esri, obviously. So GIS is another great skill, but those are very technical specific. And if you don't fit that bill, that's okay. What do you bring to the table? Focus on that. I'll leave it at that.
You know, Rakesh, it's interesting that you pointed out where's the employer's growth market is, and the reason why it resonates with me is I have a client who's based out of Toronto in the call it payment space, and they're having a difficult time finding Brazilian Portuguese speaking individuals. Brazil is a big market for them. You know, they've conquered Canada, they've conquered the US, and Brazil's a growth market. So really, you know, leverage your background, your language speaking skills, and whatever
Absolutely.
technical profession that you go into. Yeah.
Alex, I forget which college it is. We work with several colleges, not 60 like John, but several colleges. And one of them that we did a project with, we ended up hiring a project manager who had many years of experience and a business degree and doing project management formally at a college and here in Canada. And we picked up this individual after the project was done because we had a growth objective to go into South America. So we wanted to groom this individual who we felt had the raw talent and base skills already for that future growth. What was interesting, before we could even take advantage of this wonderful individual's capabilities, one of my friends called me up, and he's quite senior at a company called SOTI Canada. They're a large Canadian firm doing device management using technology, et cetera. And he said, hey, we need a director for our South American division that we're now growing. Can we, basically poach this guy from you for that role? And I said, look, I think that's the best thing you could do. That's what I think this person's capable of doing. Go at it. And in fact, they started as a manager, senior manager, and they're now the director for that area. And the point is, Alex, to further build on what you and I are saying, there is a great opportunity. One of the negatives of most Canadian companies, Esri's done a fabulous job with this as well. I keep plugging you, John, is we're not very typically good at growing beyond the border of our country. So we need international exposure, such as the students on this call, to help Canadian companies do that. You actually bring something very solid to the table. So don't discount where you're from. I'll leave it at that. It's your fault, Alex.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you both so much. It's very encouraging to hear. And I think that, we often see international students having a difficult time translating their global experience into a value add. And there are many different reasons for that. And, at Devant, we're trying to help students with their storytelling through the tools that we offer through your schools. We can help you work on your story and we can help you with that translation. But, you're hearing it right now directly from, employers and recruiters, how valuable your global experience is. And we want to leverage that for you and help you to see how that can translate for the growth of companies. That's a really important point. Ryan, what do you think from your perspective?
Sure. So yeah, it's hard to go last after so many really good points. I mean, I'll take maybe more of the soft skills approach because I don't think anyone really covered that, but it's particularly difficult when you're a student and you come out of school. Everyone has the same resume, more or less. Everybody has the same courses. So, I mean, I'm not a recruiter, but I've definitely hired team members, students, or people with experience. And I think what differentiates you is, as you mentioned, storytelling. I think like communication in general, but I think just being able to tell your story and why you're excited about a role. You might have zero experience, but if you do some research, understand the growth objectives of the company, and really show excitement for that company, it goes a long way beyond somebody else that maybe has a year of experience but doesn't really care during the interview. So I would say communication is one. Curiosity, just showing genuine curiosity about the company, asking really good questions. I mean, people, when they're looking to hire students, they usually hire for potential. So they don't assume that you're going to have all the experience required anyways. So I would say it's more about just improving and working on your soft skills. You could even reach out directly to the people that are hiring. I mean, ask them, see if they're open to chat. I mean, unfortunately, not everybody answers, but at some point, maybe somebody might, give you the opportunity, and that might really open up a lot of doors for you. So those are probably the main things I would say, aside from the hard skills that require you to be working to develop them genuinely.
Yeah, and just to add, if you don't mind, to what Ryan was saying, so many times that when new students, they don't have the experience, they may have done a short-term co-op or intern. But I'll give an example of this female Chile engineer that came here to Canada. One of the things she was saying to me is, I got no experience, but yet we got her interview. And as I talked to her, she started telling me, I said, well, weren't you the leader of this huge organization in Chile for engineers? And she said, yeah, of course. I ran it. I was one of the founders. I said, wow, you got to tell that story, right? And then as I started talking more with her, she started telling me, yeah, also too, when we started that organization, I reached out to CEOs of mining companies. And I said, wow, that's major. At 19, 20, you're reaching out to them and getting in contact with them and telling the story. Well, you have to put that in your resume and you have to tell that story, because there's skills sets that you're utilizing there that are definitely transferable to the type of person that they will be looking for. Like Brian was saying, the soft skills that are important within the organization, not just the technical skills.
So it's Helen, I just want to add to, about telling a story. When I went to live in Japan for 2 years and taught English, I always had in the back of my mind, I wanted to get into consumer packaged goods as an assistant brand manager, right? And before I went to Japan, I actually did some information interviews, people on the advertising side and also on the customer side at the CBG companies. And I knew what they were looking for. They were looking for someone who was MBO, management by objectives kind of driven person. So when I was in Japan in my last year, I always remember the discussions I had during those information interviews. And I made sure that so I started off at a kind of a large English language school. It had strict processes. You couldn't be creative. And then I left that school to join a small school of 140 students, and I managed the whole school curriculum for different ages. And also I drove new memberships, right? New students that enrolled. And I said, I crafted that story, set my resume from Japan, knowing that, okay, why am I getting this letter from Japan? Right. And telling my story. And when I went back to Canada, I interviewed and got my first job in consumer packaged good. So I think don't underestimate your experience, right? They're looking for a specific mindset or skill set in that certain profession. I knew in marketing what they were looking for. They were ultimately looking for someone who's entrepreneurial and who could plan and organize and make things happen. And I try to gain that experience by running a small English language school. So that's my thoughts to everyone.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to add one more point. So for the soft skill, I'll build on what Ryan and Alex were just saying. Soft skills are very important. Your ability to communicate is critical in any role, but it's also critical in getting a job and managing an interview process, for example. Accents. This comes up all the time. So, Canada's wonderful at welcoming multicultural, societies and individuals and all that. It is quite lovely for that. But the more you can understand local culture, the more that you could modify some language behavior. So I know many countries where English is not necessarily the only language or primary language. They learn formal English. So they don't use conjunctions like can't instead of cannot. There's some certain slang that's common in the workplace over here. Cultural norms, how to dress, how to attend a meeting, how to participate in meetings. These are some of the things I think Devant does as well. I'll give you a plug. But they are important. And people are asking in the questions, I'm reading them, how do I differentiate myself? Well, show that you're coachable, show that you can learn, show that you could evolve and modify. I'm in my 50s and I do that every day. Well, I try to, try to improve upon myself and my skill set and my offering, right? And it's, that's one way you could differentiate yourself without necessarily learning just a programming language, for example, right?
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'd
Yeah,
just
go
like
ahead,
to
please.
pick
Go
up
ahead,
very
John.
quickly on what Alex said, because
No questions required.
I worked for a CPG. I worked at Procter and Gamble for 7 years, and I actually did on-campus recruiting for one of the departments. And we didn't really get too fussed about what the person's mark were. You know, we maybe did kind of which quartile they were in, maybe, but we weren't fussed about which particularly courses they took even. A lot of it was things like working with others, problem solving, leadership, taking initiative, just what Alex was talking about. So don't get too hung up, even on the technical side. Whatever technology you're using today will be different 5 years from now, which will be unrecognizable 15 to 20 years
100%.
from now. So again, the technical's important. It's a checkbox, but usually they're looking for those other aspects on fit. And fit's really important. That's what a lot of what we're talking about. And it really comes from a non-technical side. So you've got that balancing act of checking those boxes, but the storytelling and positioning myself that, gee, this is what I bring to the table, and here's how I can make a difference to your organization.
Perfect. Just one last comment. Sorry, John. Sorry, you sparked something in my mind. So to give you a real example of what John is saying, and in fact, there was a question here on, I don't have all the skills, but I have lots of experience. How do I leverage that, or does that matter, sort of thing. I'll give you a real example. In my organization, we're going down the path of no-code development. It's a very specific platform that we're using, and for a very specific reason or reasons. And what's interesting is I have a bench of coders and developers. They're actually really excited because they're currently in the process of being trained of not being a coder and developer, but using all those inherent skills they have to actually work with clients to implement them on our new platform. So they're no longer going to be necessarily, there will be some coding, but now that we're actually evolving the roles, and we had to look for individuals when we hired them. It was on purpose. 4 or 5 of them recently are all new, and it was purposely with, what do you think about one day not coding and being more client facing and more implementation? And the ones that we hired were all excited with that prospect. Never done it, never considered it. I'd love to try. And so it's that mindset that John was mentioning and Alex was mentioning. It was that intention there, and it was addressing what I needed from growth, because I need their skill set from coding. Then they understand the logic and the workflows and all that framework that is used in coding when we implement, right? So anyway, you don't need to be technical. In fact, going forward, I'd say technical people aren't going to be as needed. But go ahead.
I know there's all different opinions on, the different types of skills, because there's the short-term needs and there's also our long-term needs. But, you raise all really important points. And I just want to highlight to the students who are listening, there's a lot of questions coming, which is great. I'm going to get to some of these. But what I'm hearing is, there's a combination of technical and soft skills. And one of the things around fit is not just looking at the technical, but valuing your soft skills, thinking about your transferable skills. I also want to suggest, in terms of understanding the values of the company and really understanding the culture of that company, to see if you align personally with the values and what that company stands for. So I want to get to some of the questions. These are really, really powerful questions. And Dipindra, you asked the first question, how to appear in a job interview that is different from the job that you had done earlier. I hope that you got the answer. I think that the conversation that we just had around transferable skills, valuing your soft skills, obviously taking a look at some of the technical skills that are required for the job, but thinking through some of those softer skills like teamwork, communication, your ability to have curiosity. I know that was mentioned as well. So hopefully, Dipindra, that answered your question. So I think that we're going to say that question was answered live, but feel free to send me another note if you wanted more information and advice around your question. I also have a question from Kalyan. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Kalyan says, I'm a project manager student and I'm in a group right now. Can I get a chance to join any co-op now, or should I complete my CAPM to join as an intern? So I just want to address this. We actually have regular immigration sessions once a month, Kalyan. And if you send me your email address, I can also share with you the link to previous sessions that we've had. So as a student, as an international student, you are eligible to work part-time while you're studying. And then depending on your project and your study breaks, you are able to work full-time during scheduled study breaks. So I'll leave that up to our lawyer, our immigration law session, to help you answer that question. But the answer is that there are opportunities for you to work as part-time or full-time if you have a scheduled break. So wanted to answer that question for you. Did anyone have anything to add around that question from Kalyan? Okay.
Oh,
yes.
I could, in my opinion, hey, if you could find a job that's relevant for your career, go for it. It shows initiative, it puts money in your pocket, hopefully. But probably most important, your stage of career, it gets you local experience, which is invaluable. So if you have the opportunity and you can manage, it also shows time management if you're in class. So if you're going to school for some level of education, and you're working and you're thriving at both, good on you. More importantly, your future employer will love that. So yeah, go for it.
Thank
I
you,
can add
Rakesh.
one thing to that. So I mean, I definitely agree. If you have the opportunity to join a company for an internship, take it. In my opinion, even if you were interning full time and took a break for school, I've never seen taking school or taking too long to graduate your program. Nobody really asks how many years or I mean, I don't usually want to hire somebody how many years it took you to graduate. It's more about the work experience. And if you have a few different co-op terms, internships, that goes much further than finishing school in a year short, I would, in my opinion.
So Ryan, you're absolutely correct. Just be careful about your visa.
Okay. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm no expert.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
so if you're on a student,
I'm no expert when it comes to.
If you're on a student visa, just
Okay.
be very aware what that
Okay,
means.
got it.
So attend the law session, the immigration law session that
don't listen to my
has been suggested. No, you're exactly right.
Within
just
the
be
rules,
careful.
within the guidelines.
Yeah, you don't want to be deported because
Yes.
you violated your student visa, and they won't then give you any other work visa after that. You'll just be blacklisted, and you're pretty well done. So
good to know.
Just be very careful. But yes,
good to know. Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think if you're in school and you're studying, you could work maximum 20 hours a week. Is that correct? Right. And then when you're off school, it's full-time 40 hours, right?
Right. So these are changing. That's why I don't want to sort of get stuck on the exact number of hours, but you're right, Alex, and thanks Rakesh and Ryan for bringing this up, because there are specific rules right now that is ending December 31st. So going forward after December 31st, the rules so far will go back to the original 20 hours a week part-time while you're studying, but during scheduled breaks, you can work full-time. So it's changing all the time. So that's why I would say, let's talk, with our immigration lawyer, and we have that session that you can ask those questions to. Also within the schools, you also have access to immigration advice through the international student centers, or you can ask these questions with your career center. But you do want to be aware of what you're legally allowed to do. But in general, it is supported for international students to work off campus on a part-time basis within the rules of your visa. And then also, as I mentioned before, on scheduled breaks, you have opportunities to do that as well. So we'll leave that up to our legal teams at the schools or through Devant to help you with some of those questions. But we are getting a lot of questions about co-op. And I think that the feeling I'm getting here from the panel is that, take advantage of any work experience that you can get within the rules of your program and your visa. It will help you in getting full-time employment in the long run. I do see some questions from students saying, they're a first year undergraduate student looking for co-op, not getting any responses from the resume. Also, even reviewing it and applying. from a reference from an employee of the company, but still not getting through. Just wondering if you have any other thoughts or advice, for students trying to get co-op or trying to get an internship, but just not getting a response, through the online application process. Wondering if any of you have any suggestions around networking or other ways to find an internship or co-op in your organizations or with the clients that you work with.
Yeah, I would say that, depending on your field as well, like, for example, there are some associations they can join, and there are hiring managers that go there, they're guest speakers, and you'll get to mingle with them, like networking events. So for example, there's the female engineers that I mentioned, they went to Young Miners engineer event one night, and they met a whole bunch of people and just network there. So I think our cybersecurity, for example, they're having all sorts of events going on, and now they're in person. And one of them too is a luncheon every Thursday, for example. Great way to go and meet some people and have lunch. And I know for a fact there's a few hiring managers there as well. So that would be my suggestion. And also just look for some organizations will have they'll pick a time slot where they're actually having a hire for trying to attract students in order to, for co-op experience. And they usually have set times when they do this, and it's done throughout the year as well. But just I say use LinkedIn. A lot of people post on LinkedIn, and have
So
your
if I
profiles. Yeah, and I just say one thing, if I could give some advice, is have your profiles on LinkedIn, because HR, recruiters, we all look at LinkedIn and have them updated as well. So
it's a great point. So my kids are actually university age. They're 20 and 19, second and third year. Obviously, they have the advantage that we're born, brought up here and whatnot. But ultimately, what they did was they attended networking sessions, as Helen said. One, to learn about the jobs and careers, understand possibly who's hiring, look for hiring managers. That's all brilliant, as Helen said. But honestly, the most important thing they try to do is find a mentor that's from that industry. Try to find somebody they can not latch on to in a bad parasitic way, but well, maybe that'll work too. But find somebody that they relate with at some personal level, someone who can guide them safely and soundly within that career. That person can be a coach or a champion for them within wherever they work, possibly as an avenue for employment. But at the very least, you're now be inundated within their network. So then you have your LinkedIn profile, as Helen mentioned. You could connect with them. Now all of their first, second degree connections are your connections. And that's one way to network and really get into it. So attend as many events as you can and something that's relevant to your interests and or career path focus and growth or objective, and find a mentor. Find somebody you can learn firsthand what it's like in that career here. And I think that's valuable. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, just to add to that, I know at Wilfrid Laurier, I can't speak for other institutions, but I'm sure they have it too. They have an alumni referral service, right? So when I graduated, and I mentioned before I left for Japan, I was thinking of going into the ad agency world or consumer packaged goods marketing world. And I spoke to 2 different people that graduated from Laurier in those fields. And it was an information session, essentially. I wasn't expecting a job from them. I was just wanting to ask questions. What do you do every day? Where are you looking? What are you looking for? What do you love about your job? What do you hate about your job? Right? Throughout their career. So start with your school. They must have an alumni referral service. Like I volunteered for Wilfrid Laurier, something called 10,000 Coffees. Right? I'm not sure if anyone's heard about that. They try to link you up with students, and you're a coach for them. So
Alex, I'm going to build on quickly. I have several friends who come here as adults, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, whatnot, to start a business or work here, whatnot. And what I was amazed with was the alumni, local alumni, as Alex is suggesting. Yes, that's valuable, but they also have an alumni from the school back home, wherever that was, where they came from, and that alumni is active in possibly every country.
Yep.
And there's one individual, he meets 22 or 23 people from his school, different years, same program, and they meet here in Toronto once a quarter, a couple times a year. They chat about business, employment, and then life as well, right? And so just remember, just because you left somewhere to come here doesn't mean where you've left is not valuable. All right. So leverage that in every way.
Great points. So I wanted to actually focus on this. So the networking question and connecting and mentorship, I think these are all great suggestions for those of you who are applying and maybe not getting that response. Thank you so much, for all these questions. And I do want to mention that we also offer support, and your schools also offer support in helping to build connections. So happy to chat with you or reach out to your career centers and reach out to, us at a later time, and we can leverage some of the tools we have to help you network and build those connections through our online services and training that we offer. I actually, John, want to ask you this next question. I think you mentioned scholarships. There's a question here around, where can international students discover scholarships for where they qualify? And are there scholarships specifically designed for work integrated studies? You mentioned that you offer like millions of dollars in scholarships. So I'm wondering maybe if you can take this question on, and if anyone else has any suggestions to add, please do.
Yeah, ours is specific to the programs, the geographic information systems programs within those 60 colleges and universities. And what it is, it's trying to help students with both the cost of their program, but also we give them software, and we also bring them to some conferences. So what we're trying to do is to help them further their studies and also go wider and deeper within that area. Certainly almost the vast majority of certainly the large universities, they all have different scholarship programs, and they have them at all the different years. And certainly the big universities all have them, because we've supported those at both the big and small universities. So it is really good to reach out, particularly those who are doing well academically. It's well worth going to your department office and just having a look around, see what's on the notice board, because some of these you'll have to apply for a scholarship. You got to say, why should I be the scholarship winner? And that's certainly true of ours. It's up to each college or university to determine the application process. But in that regard, I would keep in really good touch all the time with your department. All of them have notice boards. All of them have administrators you can touch base with respect to support that you can get.
Yeah,
Great.
so I think your department, your career centers, and even the alumni office. We personally try to sponsor a few kids every year. There's criteria for it. So alumni offices would be the ones identifying people like myself who sponsor individuals, right? So use your networks, guys. Use the facilities and resources around you already. It's everywhere. You just have to put the effort in.
Mm-hmm. And I also just want to add that I think this is a really good topic. I'll share this with our team to see what resources we have. So the individual who asked that question, it was an anonymous question. Feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to share with you some resources from our partners. We partner with 32 universities and colleges across Canada, and is definitely something that we can reach out and crowdsource a resource for this question. I think it's a great question. You'll also notice that a lot of companies are offering scholarships with internships as well. So take a look at at some of the diversity and inclusion scholarships that include an internship. Thanks again for all your answers there around the scholarships. I've got a specific question here on the IT industry, and Ryan and Helen, I'm going to ask if maybe you can answer this for us. So in the IT industry, would you favor an applicant with numerous certifications but limited work experience, or an applicant with fewer or no certifications but several years of experience? Ryan, can I ask you to go first and then followed up by Helen? Thank you.
Sure. So I was hoping Helen was going to go first. Yeah, I mean, so tricky one. I mean, it might be a little controversial, but in my opinion, I would always choose the experience over the certifications, purely because people that have, not everyone that completes the certifications puts the effort beyond just completing it. Some people view it as a pass to get jobs or a pass to be qualified to do a certain job, but in my opinion, it doesn't always work out like that. I mean, I'm sure that there are certifications that are required to perform certain very specific areas. I'm more so referring to product management or just engineering. I mean, assuming you've completed your program and it's somewhat relevant, I would prefer just start working on an app with a friend, or start to set up a website, or just play around with things and tinker with stuff. And your experience doesn't even have to be work experience, but if you just build something and try to grow it, get some more users, get more get it in front of more people, I would choose that person or those people over somebody that has a boot camp and zero experience, because I've seen a lot of those, unfortunately, that they it's hard to differentiate between them.
Yeah, I
Thanks,
think
Ryan.
as a recruiter, because I'm dealing with a variety of clients, I do agree with Ryan. I think maybe some of the startup companies or smaller companies are, it really depends. Like, some of my clients are adamant about certifications. So I'm working on a project manager role right now. The person has to have a PMP, right? And I've gone to conferences like for cybersecurity, and it's interesting where they say, well, no, I would hire someone with experience and no certifications. But then when it comes, when we're actually in that situation, they're all saying to me, no, they need to have at least one of the certifications. So it's a tricky question to answer. I think it's it's dependent on hiring manager that you're dealing with, depending on the company as well. That's what I have experienced.
Okay, thank you. So I see Alex and Rakesh both have their hands up. So maybe I'll pass to Alex and then Rakesh. And we do have 7 questions in our queue. So fire quickly and we'll try to get through some of these other questions. So Alex and then Rakesh. Thank you. Oh, you're just on mute?
Speaking, so he lost his turn.
Sorry. I agree with Helen. It depends, because I have a client, and the must-have requirements is either a project management certification, right, and experience. But I'll tell you, I know some people, some developers who have no formal education training, right, at a boot camp or university. They were self-taught, and they had a passion for coding when they were young. Like, I'm talking about 7 or 8, so I have clients that ask that specific question: how did you get into development, right? And they have a bias towards someone who at a very young age had a fascination with development, and so it varies from client to client and individual hiring manager. Right.
Thank you. It depends is what we're hearing. Rakesh, do you have anything to add to that?
Real quick. So I'll try to add rather than repeat. It goes back to storytelling and how you depict yourself on your resume. Don't call it CV, resume. If you don't have the so-called credentials based on your education, but you have it based on your experience or taught efforts. You need to showcase that. One thing I've seen, it started in the artistic world. You had portfolios, and now it's moved on to coding and UX, UI guys, and people, and marketing people, and almost every profession. If you could create a portfolio of your work, even if you're supply chain, I don't know exactly how you do that, but how do you demonstrate your capability? If you could demonstrate your capability, if you could showcase your capability, for me, I can be a hiring manager. I rarely hire directly, but I can be a hiring manager. I would rather see who you are, what you're capable of, rather than the letters behind your name. I don't have an MBA. I personally don't like the education system the way it is, so I'm not the norm. I've learned on the field, and I've managed many MBAs over the years. I'm as capable as they are because I learned it on my own, right? So prove it, showcase your capability, and you'll convince somebody that you're different and you're worthy. That's the only way to do it.
Okay, thanks, Rakesh. We've got lots of questions from students who are trying to crack into a new field. So I'm actually going to ask Nalisha's question. Thank you, Nalisha, for your question. She says, I have a number of years of experience in the field of quality management, and I already have my master's of SC. I'm currently doing a post-grad certificate in global business management, and I'd like to get some experience in this field. What is your advice for an experienced person trying to pivot or get into a new career? How can I leverage my past experience to obtain new opportunities? Is that possible?
I don't want to overtake this call, but it comes down to storytelling. Why are you passionate about this new direction? Everything is relevant. It's amazing if you really think about every single thing you've ever done, formally, informally, you've read, you've experienced, you've observed. Make it relevant towards this new direction and the passion that you're pursuing. There has to be a reason of why you're having the shift in it, and hopefully it's not just because it pays well and there's 0% unemployment in that field. That's an okay start, but find something personally that you're passionate about that is believable. All right, so
I just add one thing to that. So I definitely agree with that whole don't miss out or don't leave out any details of your history or of where you've developed over time. So for example, I sold aeration services, lawn care services door to door. I worked at a grocery store where I was stocking shelves, but speaking to customers. So just because you work these jobs that might not be as glamorous, you're still, for example, speaking to customers, learning what their needs are, and figuring out the products that they're interested in. So there's definitely something in your life that is relevant to and is part of your story that you should include. You shouldn't necessarily exclude everything. So just thought I'd throw that out because people sometimes think it has to be really related to your job all the time or your career, but it doesn't always have to be.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Rakesh. I know we're at 8 o'clock, so we had such a great time with so many conversations, and we're running out of time, but I am making a note of all the questions. There is a lot of questions here in the queue. So what I'm going to do is at this point, maybe just give our panelists an opportunity to maybe give their last piece of advice or something you really want international students to remember as they are looking for an internship or a full-time position. It looks like a lot of the questions are related to how do I sell myself, in a new career, or how do I get that first interview? So I'm just going to pass it off to you for maybe a closing remark or piece of advice that you'd like our students, our international students, to remember from today. And as I mentioned, I will make a note of all the questions and email back out the answers if the panelists have further advice for you. So thanks everyone for your engagement and your questions. Again, thank you so much to all of our panelists for being here tonight. This is a really great conversation. And I'm going to pass the floor back to you. Ryan, I'm going to get you to go first, and we're going to go backwards in the alphabet so that you get a chance to say first. What is some closing advice that you have for everyone tonight that you'd like them to remember as an international student trying to get a job in Canada?
Sure. So I thought I was going to be last. So I was thinking I had some time to think about it, but not this time. So I mean, it's definitely not going to be easy. I mean, I was born here, so I mean, I don't necessarily know the struggles or the challenges, but I know it's not going to be easy. So just keep trying your best, but also know that not every experience that you take on might not necessarily feel like the right fit at the moment. I had hoped that I knew exactly what I wanted to do, but I didn't. So sometimes you kind of just have to say yes, take on some opportunities. It might not be something you think is directly related, but it might open other doors, whether it's the person you helped out, they recommend somebody else, but just try and just, especially when you have free time and you're newer in your career, just try to volunteer for organizations or just get involved with different things that you're passionate about, because you never really know what door that will open, and they won't open unless you take those opportunities. So I mean, I would say that.
Thank you, Ryan.
I think I was second last. I'm trying to build up on what Ryan said, which I completely agree. I'm going to add that although I agree with Ryan, take whatever you can get and build upon that. Conversely, if you could find something you are passionate about, build a story around that, demonstrate why you're passionate about it. More importantly, why the employer should be passionate in hiring you for that job. You will be more successful than your counterpart who's not doing that, right? It does, in the end, the skills, your certifications, your experience, on paper, that all sounds the same. It's black ink on white paper. It all looks the same. How do you deliver your passion? Do you want to do a video? Do you want to enhance your social media around this? I've seen some great stuff on TikTok, on Instas, your LinkedIn. Bring out your personality and demonstrate your passion. Just to be something different. That's what I'll say.
Thank you,
So
Rakesh.
my parting comments are two things. One, try and get some work experience outside the classroom, because that's a real differentiator. Because the courses you took or the university you went to or college or whatever, it's just a bit of a checkbox. The differentiator is what you have done and what you've accomplished, and picking up on what Rakesh and Ryan were saying. And the second thing, I want to pick up on something Helen mentioned earlier, was you really need a really good LinkedIn profile. And what I mean by a really good one is make it interesting, and just don't and have some good links to articles or other things you've read that you feel are insightful. And LinkedIn is a great way to network, because all the recruiters, and they all use LinkedIn, and there's AI all set up to try and find candidates in LinkedIn. So I really encourage you to have a good photo, have a really strong professional presence, and also have some really interesting links or articles or things you've done as part of it. And I think that will really help on your networking.
Thank you so much, John.
So, John, you said what I was going to say. So, but just to add to that, yeah, John is so right. Like, I think really key too is to have a professional photo. I'm not saying you have to go to a professional photographer, but make sure it is a professional photo. And in your industry, you see some groups like John's and Esri, and there's GIS groups. So if I was a GIS developer, I would be joining those groups, and articles are being posted by corporations, and I would comment, not just like it, but make a comment, because at times as a recruiter I look and I see, wow, that was a really intelligent comment, and then I see that person again, interacting. And so I do sometimes will just reach out to that person. So I agree with John, really having your LinkedIn profile, up to date, current, all the information there. I agree with John too, getting that experience, even if it means volunteering. and getting some experience underneath you. And as well, I think sometimes, actually, I used to work placing some positions at Esri, and I remember speaking to a young lady just graduated out of university. She specialized in marketing, and but before she was bilingual, spoke French, and before she got the marketing coordinator role at Esri, she called me, and this was right after she graduated. She couldn't find anything, and she got a role as a bank teller. And I said, "Well, you're going to take it because it's going to show that you right away went into a job, you were eager to work, and you learned a lot of things that way." And then eventually, long story short, she got the interview at Esri as a bilingual marketing coordinator, and I follow her career right now, and she's a VP right now. So, and, so I say that just be open. Sometimes we only want to work in our field. And sometimes you work in a company and you'll start off as a marketing coordinator. They'll see that you're passionate, saying about what Rakesh said, and you move up in the company, and it opens up other doors for you.
Thanks for sharing that story, Helen. That's really powerful. Just to see the career progression and your tips in closing remarks. Alex.
I can't, how am I gonna,
So
add
you don't
value
have to.
this
You can say
after
ditto as well.
So let me try to wrap this up, okay?
Okay.
So I've heard
the final
passion,
words.
right? I've heard differentiating yourself, right, amongst the crowd. I've heard volunteering or finding a part-time job. I've heard networking. You spend a lot of money to go to school and study what you do. I mean, your dream career. Spend some money or time at the library and learn about storytelling. Learn about, what's important in a resume. I've seen some fundamental mistakes being made, right? Simple things. Like I've seen horrible resumes. I've been saying to myself, doesn't career counseling help out? Or could you not have picked up a book? Or could you not use Devant's services? Invest some money and time in educating yourself. I mean, there's a book out there called Storytelling. It's a bestseller, and I bought it, right? And it's fabulous. It tells you, examples of why storytelling is so effective versus spewing out just facts, right? So spend some money or go to the library and be a student of networking. There's an art form to networking. When I started networking, I was very scared. I'm actually an introvert, right? But just being yourself and being friendly and not being transactional, right, goes a long way, pays off in the long term. So invest some money in learning on these art forms, or call it disciplines.
Wonderful. Well said, Alex. Thank you. And thanks for mentioning about Devant. So absolutely, if you're a student who's here today through your school, you have free access to Devant services. We do have courses and online support for mock interviews and storytelling with AI feedback. So definitely use our services. You have access to it. Your career centers also offer services. If you need additional coaching and you want more one-on-one support, contact us. We can help you in improving all of these soft skills as networking and storytelling that were mentioned today. Again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to TechConnex, for bringing you here and sponsoring this event. It was a great discussion. Just a reminder for those where I couldn't ask all of the questions, I have made a note. And just to our panelists, if you see any questions there that you have a comment on or that you want to answer, just flip me a note and I will include that in our follow-up note along with the resources for scholarship. So thanks everyone for such a great discussion. It was really, really useful and valuable. I hope you found it useful as well. And we'll see you again. We offer these sessions every week. So just go on to www.devant.ca to take a look at what's coming up next. We've got a great lineup of events for you. I also want to mention that on February 22nd, we will have our Get Hired at Home event where we bring together students and employers for Super Screen Days. So looking forward to seeing you all there. And again, thanks everyone so much for joining us. Have a great evening.